Welcome. Today we're going to discuss Chapter 4, Ethics and Information Security. But before we do that, let's take a look at Case 1, which you'll be doing in class today. So let's go up to the Sakai website, take a look at where the information is. Okay, so under Resources, under Class Assignments folder, click that. You'll see three cases. The one we're doing today is Case 1. And for Case 1, here's the instructions for doing it. A very simple spreadsheet for you to do as well. So let's go ahead, spend about 45 minutes, do that, and then email me your results. Okay, let's go over Chapter 4. The first key point in Chapter 4 was the ethical issues in the use of information technology. So information ethics governs the ethical and moral issues arising from the development and use of information technologies. It also arises from the creation, distribution, and processing of information itself, and that means with or without computer technologies. Ethical dilemmas in this area usually arise not as simple, clear-cut solutions or situations, but as clashes between competing goals and loyalties. Inevitably, there'll be more than one socially acceptable or correct decision. For this reason, acting ethically and legally are not always the same thing. So next we have to look at the 6 e-policies that organizations should implement to protect themselves. So an ethical computer use policy contains general principles to guide the computer user behavior. For example, it might explicitly state that users should refrain from playing computer games during working hours. Secondly, an information privacy policy contains general principles regarding information privacy. An acceptable use policy is a policy that a user must agree to in order to be provided access to corporate email, information systems, and to the internet. An email privacy policy details the extent to which email messages may be read by others. A social media policy outlines the corporate guidelines or principles governing employee online communications. An employee monitoring policy states explicitly how, when, and where the employee is going to monitor its, the company is going to monitor its employees. So what are the differences between hackers and viruses, and what are their relationships? Well, hackers are experts in technology who use their knowledge to break into computers and computer networks. And they do this either for profit or just motivated by the challenge. A virus is software written with malicious intent to cause annoyance or damage. Some hackers create and leave viruses causing massive computer damage. So describe the relationship between information security policies and an information security plan. Information security policies identify the rules required to maintain information security, such as requiring users to log off before leaving for lunch or meetings, never sharing passwords with anyone, and changing passwords every 30 days. An information security plan details how an organization will implement the information security policies. The best way a company can safeguard itself from people is by implementing and communicating its information security plan. So let's look at examples for the three primary information security areas: authorization and authentication, prevention and resistance, and detection and response. Authentication and authorization involves authentication as a method for confirming users' identities. And once a system determines the authentication of a user, it can determine the access privileges or authorization for that user. Authorization is the process for providing a user with permissions, including access levels and abilities such as file access, hours of access, and amount of allocated storage space. Prevention and resistance involved content filtering. And content filtering occurs when organizations use software that filters content such as emails to prevent the accidental or malicious transmission of unauthorized information. Encryption scrambles information into an alternative form that requires a key or password to decrypt. In a security breach, a thief is unable to read encrypted information. A firewall is hardware or software that guards a private network by analyzing incoming and outgoing information for the correct markings. And finally, detection and response. Intrusion detection software, IDS, features full-time monitoring tools that search for patterns in network traffic to identify intruders. And some of them have the capability to provide responses, and they might be called intrusion detection and prevention systems. Okay, let's spend about 15 minutes to read through the case study, 5 Ways Hackers Get Into Your Business. Okay, so the first question is define information ethics and information security and explain whether they are important to help prevent hackers from gaining access to an organization. Well, advances in technology make it easier for people to copy everything from music to pictures. Technology poses new challenges for our ethics, which is the principles and standards that guide our behavior towards other people. Information ethics govern the ethical and moral issues arising from the development and use of information technologies, as well as the creation and collection, duplication, distribution, and processing of the information itself. And that's with or without the aid of computer technologies. So ethical dilemmas in this area are not simple, clear-cut, but differences in competing goals, responsibilities, or loyalties. Information security is a broad term encompassing the protection of information from accidental or intentional misuse by persons inside or outside an organization. Both are critical to every organization. So let's look at two e-policies that a business could implement to ensure the protection of sensitive corporate data from hackers. Well, an ethical computer use policy contains general principles that guide computer user behavior. So that's something that would prevent people from using certain software during working hours. And obviously this could prevent people from going out to sites that might have viruses during working hours. An information privacy policy contains general principles regarding privacy. And so in that case, we inform users they have a responsibility in protecting this type of information. Social media policy outlines the corporate guidelines for employee online communications. So again, you have policies in place that prevent users from going to sites or making tweets or going to Facebook where they might get involved in something where a virus or a malicious attack happens. Next, demonstrate how a business can use authentication and authorization technologies to prevent hackers from gaining access to organizational systems. So authentication would keep, again, authentication is a method for confirming users' identities. So if the user cannot confirm their identity, then we do not let them into our systems. And that way we prevent hackers from getting in to our information stores in the first place. Once a system determines the authentication of a user, it can then determine the access privileges or authorization for that user. So if it so happens that a user has their authentication compromised and a hacker gets in, then there's a limited amount of authorization that user has. And again, authorization is the process of providing a user with permission, including access levels like read or write, and abilities such as file access and hours when they can make those accesses, so that even if a hacker did get one individual's authentication, they would not have access to all the information in the organization. Next, analyze how a business can use prevention and resistance technologies to safeguard its employees from hackers and viruses. So again, prevention and resistance, content filtering is one of these, and that occurs when organizations use software that filters content such as emails to prevent accidental or malicious transmission of unauthorized information. We can also use encryption to scramble the information into an alternative form that requires a key or password to decrypt. In a security breach, a thief is unable to read the encrypted information. A firewall is hardware or software that guards a private network by analyzing incoming and outgoing information for the correct markings. Explain why hackers want to gain access to organizational data. Well, data includes the keys to the kingdom. And if a hacker gains access to your sensitive corporate data, they can easily destroy your business. Information security policies identify the rules required to maintain information security, such as requiring users to log off before leaving for lunch or meetings, never sharing passwords with anyone, and changing passwords every 30 days. An information security plan details how an organization will implement the information security policies. The best way a company can safeguard itself from people is by implementing and communicating its information security plan. If an unethical contractor builds a government application, they could sell the information or the application to someone outside the government. Evaluate additional ways hackers can gain access to organizational data. Well, oftentimes, if they can gain physical access to the office, they are going to have the ability to get in, and they'll have direct access to hard drives. So that is a definite security concern. And some of the ways that hackers can get into a building is they go through the smoking door. They just wait outside where people go to smoke. They're smoking, and then when one of the legitimate smokers goes back into the building, the hacker just goes right in with them. Another technique they use is called social engineering. They social engineer an employee to allow them in or to accidentally provide their username and password. They can go through dumpsters to find sensitive information, and they can hack into wireless networks. So these are all potential ways hackers can gain access to organizational data.